Oh, wait, do we have the recording? Oh, what's up? I guess we're just live. What happened to that?
Wait, we're live already?
Yeah, we were supposed to.
Oh my god!
That was
All right.
really funny.
So do you think like that's like a sign of what's to come for the rest of the night tonight? Is that
No,
is
it's
that what we have
fine.
to
I
expect?
thought that was hilarious. That was great. I was like, I saw it go live. I'm like, oh, we're live. You were just on your phone, and I was just saying, oh, we're live. Look at that.
At least we weren't saying like really, really inappropriate things or bad words or stuff that could get us canceled. On a positive note, right? So I'm excited. Jonah, are you excited tonight?
I'm excited. I was telling you, Marco, when you were in the bathroom, I've never watched a debate with someone who politically disagrees with me. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's because you live this really weird sheltered life in an echo chamber, and I'm trying to break you of that and let you know that there is a world outside of doing what you're told, Jonah. There is a world outside.
Have you ever watched a debate with someone you disagree with? I'm just curious.
I live with someone I disagree with. Not necessarily
Really?
politically. No, I'm just kidding.
Talking about politically.
No, I don't. To be honest with you, like I'm not a huge politics guy. I've said that from the beginning. Like I've never really been the guy that's like, "Ooh, let me sit down and look at the party candidates and their policies." Right? I kind of think it's
You just
all
go off vibes.
Yeah, it's not even vibes. Like I pay attention to the important stuff, but I just I think a lot of the stuff is just they're talking points and fluff. As I've gotten older over the last over the last few, I paid more attention to it and I take it a little bit more seriously. But no, I guess simply put, I don't know that I've watched a lot of these debates with people who disagree necessarily. I don't know. I guess I don't know the answer to that. Maybe I'm as guilty as you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're in an echo chamber, dude. Go fuck.
I guess so. So we are going to be watching the live stream tonight. For those of you guys who don't know, goal is watch the debate tonight here. I don't know how this is going to play out. Like, are there going to be breaks? Are there going to be little weird pockets?
There will be commercial breaks at some point, so then you and I can chime in.
Perfect. So we can pop in during the commercial breaks. We can chat. We'll probably want to do that anyway, so we don't get copywritten if people are using music. We can, chat a little bit at the beginning. And honestly, what my goal is, Jonah, here's what I'm going to be doing. I don't know what you're going to be doing. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be just taking notes per point. Like I got my little Notion thing open up. I'm going to take notes, and I'm just going to kind of put it
Notion with me. I use Notion. Share that with me. Let's have.
Out of here. All right, we can just okay. And then I think we talk about it tomorrow. What we like, what we didn't like. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like Jonah's about to hear me. Like I've made it very, very clear. There is no scenario where I think Kamala Harris is a better fit than Trump in this particular scenario. Make no mistake. If Trump says some dumb stuff, it's going in my notes.
Sounds like you're not being. Oh wait. Say that again. Maybe I misunderstood you. Are you saying
Trump, if what?
I'm sorry. Say that again. I think I misheard you.
No, I said you're gonna see. I can be fair. If Trump says some dumb stuff, it's going in my notes, and he can get it just like anybody else can. You know what I mean? So tomorrow we'll be talking about it. I think I heard you saying earlier that these are more about how did you put it?
Oh, these are just completely about owns. It's all about owning the other side.
Yeah,
that's all debates are, in my opinion. Like, I mean, yeah, you get into policy, but like nobody has any evidence in a debate. They're just trying to own each other. They're just trying to get like a zinger on them, right?
Yep.
It's more of a blood sport thing. That's why usually debates don't affect an election very much, actually, historically. The last one did. I mean, we just replaced the whole entire goddamn candidate because the last one was
Jonah. No, he got COVID and then decided that he's going to have
he was
COVID.
Tired, bro. I'm still going with it, dude. He was a little sleepy. That's fine. Anywho, he's not the candidate, so I don't really give a shit.
Okay, fair enough. So here's the thing. Let's guys in the chat. Really, really interested in hearing y'all's thoughts. Who do you think? Okay, if it's for owns,
Wait, who do you think is going to win? Like, just generally, like, not
look,
like.
I'm gonna be honest
who
with
do
you,
you
man.
think is
I'm
gonna
gonna be
win?
honest with you. Here's my honest opinion. My answer to that is I don't know, because everything I've ever what I think is gonna happen. Every time I've ever heard Kamala speak, as respectfully as possible, I don't hear an extremely high IQ. She can barely coherently formulate sentences. Now, I may just be seeing the clips that are circulating, and that's fair. I have never seen her in a full conversation. My guess is she is overwhelmingly prepared as to what she's going to be saying, and she's going to be reading like a book. So that being said, depending on how well this is structured, I don't know what's happening in the background. I know that the people who are hosting this thing are heavily Democratic, so I'm not going to start putting out there the idea that maybe she's going to get questions in advance. I'm going to leave that part alone. I think she's going to be extremely prepared, and I think that the debate is going to be structured in a fashion that serves her preparedness. I think if you got to go off top and you got to start getting off the script and actually think for yourself, respond on the fly, she may struggle. She may struggle a lot because I just have never seen her perform well.
So did you see the debate between her and Mike Pence 4 years ago? Did you watch the vice presidential?
I did. I could not even tell you one thing about that because honestly, I wasn't taking her seriously back then. She was not.
I remember it pretty well. She did a decent. I think she did a pretty good job.
Okay.
It'll be very different versus Trump than Mike Pence. Mike Pence kind of a little bit more soft mannered.
Yeah.
Right? She doesn't let you get bullied. She doesn't like she will not. She just won't tolerate a bully, which I think she's going to do really well with Trump because Trump usually tries to bully the other candidate. Generally, that's kind of his debate style, right? So, and that works for him sometimes, and it doesn't work for him other times. I think it worked really well in the primaries as a Republican. I think it worked decently well with Hillary Clinton. I think Hillary Clinton actually got a little intimidated, and I don't think it worked very well with Joe Biden. I don't think it'll work very well with Kamala either. Okay. Trump's best move, in my opinion, would be to kind of be his conserved self, where I saw how he acted that way in one of the debates with Joe Biden 4 years ago, where he kind of like stepped back, wasn't abrasive, was much more like just calm, keeping it controlled, right? That was, he like was not trying to bully. He was just trying to get his points across, and that's it. If that Trump comes out, that would be a lot more dangerous, in my opinion, than bully Trump. I think bully Trump would look like an idiot tonight. I think Kamala, I don't think he's ever dealt with a sassy black woman in his entire life. And I don't think he's ready to start doing that today. Sorry, I really just wanted to say that.
Yeah, you've been saving that thing up, huh? You've been waiting for that. Yeah, Marco, I actually don't disagree with you, man.
I kind of agree with this too.
I agree with him. I've said that. I've thought about, obviously, I have a course on communication. I've thought about doing a breakdown of Trump's communication style. Not a fan of it on a lot of fronts. I think, here's the thing, right? So to your point, because I agree with both you and Marco on this point. However, I think this is where it's going to be interesting to see the direction that the debate ends up going. What do I mean? Well, if the debate is very structured, I agree that him sticking to points is going to be important. But you and I both know he's going to just be attacking the left. That's what he's going to be doing. If this thing goes to a fight, like if it goes into a punch for punch, I don't know that Kamala can keep up.
I think she'll do better than you think. I remember
maybe, but you got to realize this is his strong suit. Like this is what this man has done for an entire career. Not to say that she can't hold her own. I'm not implying that she can't, but this is like what's the young dude trying to box Tyson?
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul, right? Jake Paul got hands. Jake Paul can handle himself in a ring. He's proven that. But Mike Tyson's been doing this for a generation, bro. Like it's a different thing. So that's the part I'm curious to see.
She's a lot better. You probably don't remember. I remember watching the Democratic primary debates too. She almost decked Joe Biden in those, right? She almost completely ended his campaign when she brought up busing and like how he wasn't very supportive of interracial busing, right? That was like a huge thing for a while. She's very good at digging into a point that people are like, right. I really don't like him for that. I don't know. I think she'd do better in a fight than if if Trump flips it, which he did once with Hillary, like Hillary, he kind of came out. We was talking with one time he was bullying Hillary. The next he was kind of conservative and like didn't really like go the bully route. Went just more like I'm here to do me. I'm here to save the American people. If that Trump came out, I think Trump would win. If Trump tries to bully, I think he's going to lose.
You know what?
That's my opinion, but we'll see.
Okay. Here's the thing, man. In any other scenario, I agree with you. I wish we could get Trump to just be let me just talk about genuine Trump. I think one of the best showings, let me say one of the best showings I saw on Trump was one of the interviews or conversations that he did shortly after the assassination attempt. I don't know if it was RNC. I don't know what it was, but it was a compassionate, genuine, sincere human being. And we don't get to see that side of him. And it's unfortunate because the side he insists on showing is the dramatic, combative, I'm ready to put the gloves on person. And I genuinely do think there's value in showing that softer side, that compassionate look. I'm just a human, right? Like I'm a guy with a family who cares about the country. And I think there is a lot to be said about that. I think if he showed that side more often, he would actually win a lot of the people that he's so off-putting to simply by that. However, I don't know tonight is the environment for that. And I genuinely mean that when I say I don't know.
At all. A debate is not the environment for that.
That's what
I don't
saying.
know. We'll see. I think Republicans love the combative side, though, don't you? Isn't that like why they love him?
Yeah, but here's the thing. He already got those people, right? He already has those people. You and I both know there are the Republicans that are just going to vote for Trump. And there's nothing you're going to say. They're voting for Trump, like, period. And then you have the other people who are like, you know what? I don't care really what happens at all. I am never voting for that guy because he's a threat to democracy. Oh my God, the screen. Right? I sent you a video about that. That's why I referenced that. Sorry, we're dog sitting. We have 9 dogs in this house right now. Yeah, it is. Is it as crazy as the debate's going to be tonight, though? We'll see. So honestly, man, like I think that there are going to be people on their side you're not swaying. But there are a decent amount of people. Maybe it's 20, 30%. I don't know what the number is.
I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Where are you at? Are you like 80% going to vote for Trump, 20% Kamala? Are you like 90% Trump, 10% Kamala? Like, I'm just curious, like, where you're at. Because, like, It sounds like you may be able to be swayed. I'm not sure.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. I've said this time and time again, not a big politics guy. I don't think they're here to save us. I think we got to save ourselves. I think a lot of it's a game. I think a lot of times, a lot of it is just us getting played, not being aware of that. I can't think of any scenario that exists at all under any circumstances that I could see myself, short of something miraculous or dramatic taking place, voting for Kamala Harris.
Okay. So, all right. So never mind. So all right, then we'll just have fun tonight. It's all good.
Yeah, here's the thing, right? Like, you never know what these people are going to say to surprise us. So I tend to approach.
There's nothing that Kamala's going to say that would be that would sway you. I feel like, and honestly, I'm going to be real. There's not going to be anything that Trump says that sways me either. Like I'm totally in that camp too. Marco, that will be Kamala. I'm not gonna lie. She will probably go after the real estate gains. I'm 95% sure Trump will definitely be better for real estate, tax wise.
What industry are you in again, Jonah? What industry are you in again?
I'm in real estate.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I mean, look, you don't like being successful. That's fine. It's cool. I mean,
in my head, I don't vote based on what will personally help me. I fucking make a lot of money. Of course, I'd do better under Republicans, right?
Okay, but wait, hold on.
I also gotta make sure that like my other countrymen are okay, right?
Your other countrymen? What are you writing for the cavalry and the Revolutionary War?
I am goddamn Paul Revere levels of patriotic. That's all I'm gonna say. I might as well be Paul Revere, dude.
Stop it, bro. Okay, all right. Look, here's my question, bro. You don't even know anything about this woman. You know you don't like Trump, but you can't say anything positive about her.
Bro,
and don't hit me with child tax.
I can say positive things about Trump. They're completely irrelevant to the fact that he tried to steal the last election. And I have 4 hours of research that we're eventually going to review.
I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to do that.
Once you finally get it. But
here's the thing, like
that I mean, just that whole thing where he tried to steal last election just disqualifies him. The whole elector scheme. Nobody knows what I'm talking about right now, but we have to do. I refuse to not do that podcast before the actual election happens.
Wait, hold on. Are they starting? Hold on.
Race for president ended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign.
Let's
Kamala
fucking
Harris,
go!
We will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump,
We will soon be a great nation.
Cindy.
again.
face to face, historic. The ABC News
Is
presidential
it laggy
debate.
for you, Keanu?
Here now,
People, is it
a
laggy
little
for
bit.
you?
and Lindsay Davis.
Good
Is that-
evening,
is
I'm
it
David
actually
Jordan.
on
Thank
your
you for
screen?
joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome
This will be
viewers
pretty
watching
annoying
on
to watch it this way.
ABC
We need like
and
it where
around
it's
the
not
world tonight.
super laggy.
Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage.
Give it a minute.
in
Let's
this
see what happens.
unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential
You coming
event
through
of their
okay?
campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For
I mean,
Vice
it's pretty
President
laggy.
Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's
Way
debate.
better.
90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with
I don't
the
know what you did, but
campaigns.
it's working now.
The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like They have, I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working one or two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. barely can afford to do it. And what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her
Why-
that
why
question?
don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor
birth?
of Virginia.
That's crazy.
The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And
Oh no. What happened?
That's everywhere. I don't know what happened. I don't know.
That's everywhere?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Let's see what happens.
Wait, what? That's crazy. It just ABC just went down. Dude, is it the deep state? No.
Shame.
On my phone,
As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've seen
this,
people on television.
let me just say here, this is
The people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was
That's
what
just,
you
like,
wanted to
not
talk about
true.
earlier. So let's get back to your deportation
False.
proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And This will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump.
Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President Trump.
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Biggest fan of
Lindsay, thank
solar.
you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where Bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican,
judge looked at it.
and said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay with it because
your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
All right. Wow.
Very, very interesting.
Okay, hold on. Before we get into any policies or anything, I think they're doing very fairly both great with the clapbacks. I think they've got some good clapbacks here, in my opinion. I like both of their clapbacks.
I think Trump last couple rounds has come back. I think Kamala had it before that. I think she was kind of leading the debate up before that. Honestly, man, I really don't want to say this. The moderators are on her side, man. It's becoming more and more obvious. She has yet to be fair once.
Like
right?
I won't deny that, but like definitely the moderators are definitely letting her slide with a few more things than Trump.
Yeah.
There
is more aggressive questions directed at him, none at her. One at her. 5 at him, maybe. She's been given a little bit more time to respond. She's only been cut off once. He's been cut off multiple times. So it's unfortunate, right? Because at the end of the day, just let him talk it out, right? If you're going to police one, police them both, or don't police them, right? I don't like that this should even be a part of the conversation. They should just be able to talk it out.
Yeah, I mean, he said some crazy shit though. Some of the fact checks, I'm like, wow. And I mean, there was some things. I don't know how what she meant by the love letters to Kim Jong Un. Like, that's hilarious, and I'm also curious if that's real or not. I have no idea, but
Which
that
part?
would be really funny. No, when Kamala was like, he's writing love letters to Kim Jong Un. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like that's pretty funny to me. I don't know. I don't know if that's real or not, but yeah. I mean, like. Very much. I mean, I'm in the comments just going crazy, you know, with all the policies. It's all the same bullshit.
Guys, if you see, like, when you see my name first, it's me typing. When it's Jonah, it's him, because when one of us types it, it sounds like it's both of us. So that's what that is. Yeah, it's interesting. Guys, in the chat, what are you thinking? Say in the chat who you think is winning so far. How do you think this is going?
Think Trump's winning because they're all Trump fans, right? That's obvious.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think this is a landslide either way. I think Kamala was ahead.
This is what I meant, though. Like, he's kind of going between the bully Trump and the conserved Trump. Like, did you notice how he was acting at the very beginning, where he was kind of like conserved? He wasn't like immediately going in. Once she started mentioning the crowds, he was like, "Go fuck yourself, Kamala." Like then he started getting into that mode. I knew if she ever mentioned the crowds, I knew he was about to go crazy. He was very close to losing it. If she kept, honestly, good debate strategy would have been like, you think my crowds are fucking tore it in, dude? Like, your crowds are just fake news. That's the real fake news. Like, if she kept digging into it, I don't think he would have been able to handle it. Personally, I think his ego wouldn't have been able to handle it. But, I mean, it's all the same bullshit, right? In the end, it's just like everybody, this is why I don't think debates matter that much, is like, you either agree or don't agree with like these facts, right? Like, we have separate facts now, and that's like an issue, right?
That's the biggest part. That's the biggest part, because what we're listening to is whose facts sound harder. But the reality is we can't confirm any of this stuff because it's all kind of BS. There was multiple things that Harris said that weren't accurate. She was never fact check on them. The things that
what'd she say wasn't accurate?
We'll go over it when we do the recap tomorrow. But like, there's just
we can go over them now too. I mean, we're in.
Well, I don't want to start down the road and then we don't be able to finish the commercial. But for the sake of summarizing, it's just unfair that there is a lot of information that's just not really being. It's just not being balanced out. I agree that it is a little bit of a one-sided conversation. Trump lost his cool. Yeah, but he's going to do that, right? I think he's going to do that regardless. I think that's his personality type.
I think Kamala's doing a great job, though. Kamala's doing a great job of like kind of just letting him do his thing. Like, I'm impressed with her debate performance. I thought when he started acting cool, she wouldn't be able to handle that, but she's like keeping up with him. I think this debate-wise, I think this is neck and neck. Obviously, I think Kamala's completely right about everything.
She's definitely doing better than
what?
No, I'm saying no. I don't disagree. She's definitely doing better than I thought she would do.
Like, in terms of debate tactics, I think they're completely even. I think in terms of, I mean, obviously, I just agree with Kamala, but like in terms of just looking at it as objectively as I can, I think they're going neck for neck. I don't see really anybody right now winning this debate. I think Kamala's doing great. I think Trump's doing what Trump always does, which is just saying the same old bullshit. But in terms of how they sound, they both sound good. You know?
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
It's not bad. All right, let's
we're back to it.
Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more. because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch?
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander in chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with
thank
the
you.
Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something, I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Time's up.
I
Lindsay.
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
She
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond.
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
gonna
just need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your third
Look at
time
you.
running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Past is
President
prologue
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue
Well,
that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. They're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Let's go. That was a good second half.
That was a great second half. I got fired
good.
up there. That was, dude. I'm impressed. I am very impressed with the clapbacks from Kamala. I was like, I'm very happy she was able to clap back, and very much in even ways. Personal opinion. I agree more with Trump's foreign policy, so I think he did better there. I don't know if I'm being as objective there. And then really after that, it just depends on what you think the facts are. I think he's completely was just wrong about a bunch of different things, and certain parts I think are fine.
Here's my takeaway. If I had to give it to the first before the commercial, I would give that probably leaning slightly towards Kamala or even, right? But if I had to pick someone, I would lean Kamala for that first half. For the second one, I would probably give this one to Trump. I think Ukraine, I agree with 100% about what he said about Ukraine. I think that he is a good enough
Ukraine one at some point.
I think we should. Look, Jamarco's girlfriend literally is from Ukraine. So I think he knows a lot about this. He's educated me a little bit. I do think that Trump's stepping into office, everybody knows he's about to get elected. I think he could probably negotiate in advance. I mean, he's probably making a lofty thing. I think
that's
Afghanistan.
Crazy. I'm sorry, he's not gonna.
Yeah, he's flexing. He's flexing. He's flexing.
Get the fuck out of here. He might be able to do it in office, maybe, but get the fuck out of here before office. Like,
imagine if he did, though. That would be a boss move.
I'm
Look,
sorry.
Here's the thing: Afghanistan. That was a disgusting embarrassment of a shit show, in my opinion, by this administration.
Here's my question with Afghanistan, because I agree they did things in a way that definitely were terrible, and like we left a bunch of equipment there. There were a lot of things done. In my opinion, and this is just a question, we'll never know. I think the Taliban would have taken over no matter who. As soon as we got out, they would have taken over.
We can talk about that because I'm just trying to do hot points for the commercial. But here's the thing: 13 people died. Trump went to every single family member's funeral. He called and spoke with every single one of them. Zero person in Afghanistan during the exfil, right? Nobody from the Biden administration went to, or had any conversations with them. Every single one of the families has come forward and said that the only person who ever reached out to them was Trump directly. Phone calls. Nobody in the Harris administration. So for me, nice. I would say Ukraine and Afghanistan, those two, Trump took at. The race one, I think it's a silly thing. Trump didn't say anything inappropriate. If he had, I'd call him on it. He didn't. The only thing dude said was, I don't know. They asked, I believe they asked him a question. His response was, I don't know. I thought she was Indian.
No, I thought the question was because he tweeted and was like, "Is she actually black?" Did I completely miss that? We'd have to rewind the tape.
I don't know but the one they were referring to was when he was on that panel. It was it was 3 or 4 black women. He was on a panel. He was speaking. They told him Kamala was going to be there. Kamala was going to be there for a debate. She wasn't, so they kind of lied to get him there. And they were trying to throw all these questions at him. This was one of the questions. And so if I recall correctly, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, he basically was like, I thought she was Indian. Apparently she's black now. I don't really care either way. I just don't know why you would focus on one more than the other. That was what I thought the whole focus was. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I have
If
no
that's
idea.
true, I think that's silly. He is saying that
Republicans say about her race is disgusting, but
Yeah,
I actually
I mean,
haven't seen Trump say that much
I
about
think
it.
I haven't heard him say anything disrespectful about it. If he does, then you got to call it, right? But I think that's a
Yeah.
reach. I think that whole
What I've
thing,
seen
that's a reach.
Republicans say though is just straight like,
Yeah.
holy shit, you people are being
We should
fucking racist.
we should do
right
the
now.
healthcare one. We should do the healthcare. Peggy, if you got that, please send it to me, right? I want to see that. Here's the thing. We should also do a show potentially on the Affordable Care Act. Here's the thing, because there are people who benefited. Ashley saying she benefited. Peggy saying she's benefited. That's real stories. Mine was like $800 a month, $12,000 deductible. That was not a benefit to me. There was no
Wait, how much
benefit.
you paying
On
health
top of that,
insurance right now?
I don't have health insurance now. I don't. When I had Obamacare, at like I found the cheapest price for $500 or $600 a month. I had my gallbladder removed. Obamacare wouldn't cover it. I got a $90,000 bill. So all of this stuff about, okay, it helped me, fantastic. It didn't help everybody. So it's not as good. Like I'm living proof. I got a $90,000 bill.
One-time
saying it didn't.
experiences. It's hard to tell from one-time experiences, right? Like I'm gonna be honest. Obamacare came into effect. I was like 12 or 14, I think. I think it was like 14 or something.
Oh yeah, I forget
So
you're a
I
child.
don't really remember what healthcare was like beforehand. I just remember hearing like you could be denied,
I think
being
we're about to come back.
denied for
We're
pre.
coming back. We're
Okay,
coming
we'll
back. We're
talk
coming
about
back.
it.
Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like We're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
Wowzers.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC
All right.
News.
Cool.
Good night.
From all of us here at ABC News, good night. All right, let me stop.
That was
All
the
right.
best debate I've seen in 8 years. Compared to all the 2020 debates, that was so much just better of a debate. I remember
Yeah.
watching the 2020 debates and being like, this is just dog trash. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And then last debate, that was trash as well. I mean, Joe Biden did terribly, like just objectively. And then, so anyways, I think that was just the best debate for America I've seen in a long time. So that actually made me feel good.
So,
Even though I
honest
think-
opinion, right? Let's break this up. I started saying it. We got interrupted by the commercial. Your opinion, if you had to break it up, right? First round, second round,
I don't
and
know.
then
That was
closing
neck
remarks.
to neck, in my opinion, to be honest. Like, that was like a good showing from both. I mean, I think Trump is just lying, but in terms of like debate tactics, I think they both did great.
Wait, so
I
what
think
did he lie about? Name one or two things, like, because you can't just assume that he's
What did
lying.
he
because-
lie about?
Yeah.
He lied. Oh God, I gotta like remember. I should have been taking notes. Like, he lied about the I don't think, I mean, is there any proof that she pre-negotiated with Russia before the war even happened, that she was in charge of that? I don't know. I feel like that was not true. Like, I don't think that was happening.
But you don't know.
He's lying about like inflation, the manufacturing jobs. I feel like probably, I mean, at least all the data I saw when we were last talking, it was going up. I don't know about this month necessarily, but overall manufacturing has been going up in the entire Biden administration. So maybe not lying, but there are definitely things where he was just like for sure wrong. And he was lying. He was completely lying about all the January 6th stuff. All of that was bullshit. I'm sorry, but I agree with him on foreign policy. I think foreign policy wise, that's the one thing I'm like, I think Trump is better at than probably Kamala. But everything else I think is trash at. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, so if you had to, so
Wait, are
you
we
just
saving
called
this for tomorrow? Wait, what's your
Yeah.
opinion of like who won?
Yeah, well, let's give high level recaps, and then tomorrow I think we should break into a couple of things.
Wait,
Your
well,
opinion.
let me ask you the question you asked me. Who do you think won?
Well, I'm asking you. Hold on, finish answering. So you calling this a draw?
I mean, I'm trying to take my bias out of it. If I try to take my bias out of it, I feel like debate-wise, that was a draw.
Okay. Here's my opinion. I told you guys, I think first round, Kamala probably took it or it was a draw. Second round, from a debate standpoint, I would say he ate for the first half of the second round. They threw in the race stuff in the middle, so all of a sudden somebody says something. Yeah, somebody says something about race, and then our brain shut off. We go full idiots, and then we stop thinking, right? Because somebody said racism. Oh, he's racist now. Look at the thing. He took out a newspaper ad. All right, cool, right? Unfortunately, while that's not okay, there is far more evidence to his not being racist than there is to him being racist, but nobody wants to talk about that. So everybody's going to point to the same thing. So as a result, everybody's going to forget about the much more severe situations that were discussed prior to that, which is unfortunate, but it just shows the level of lack of emotional control when that people have when listening to things. So I think that most people are going to hear this on the left as a Kamala win. People on the right are going to hear this as a Trump win. I think that he won bigger on bigger topics. So Afghanistan, big topic. He won huge on that. Ukraine, big topic. He won huge on that. He did not present any plans. So if we're talking about plans for the future, Kamala destroyed it. He didn't present anything. So
Right.
she ate, right? Like, now, do I think that either one of their plans would have had any backbone? Probably not. Unless Trump points to stuff he's already got a track record of starting to deploy, in which case we can say, well, like, you can't, if he says he's going to build a wall, you can't say, no, you're not, because he already started. He got pretty decent progress in. You know what I mean? So, like, in those things, but other than that, I don't believe it. But here's the thing. She presented stuff and he didn't. He's like, we got some stuff coming. Cool. So then she won in that department.
I think I mean, like, I don't know how you feel about abortion, but I think she just, like, that's the issue is, like, I think she destroyed him on that, right? Like, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about abortion, but, like, I think that was.
I would love to do a topic around abortion. Full transparency. I am not extremely educated on abortion. So I don't have an opinion. I don't think she ate. I think she made fantastic points. I don't disagree with the points that she made. However, this is where I want to do more research. So this is on my notes of something we should do more homework on. Maybe we can talk about this tomorrow. Aaron, would love to have you. I would love to have a conversation about this. Here's why. A couple of reasons why.
Also, that gun comment, you were laughing when I was talking about that, right? Wasn't that hilarious?
That was good. That was a
a good clapback. I love that clapback. I was like, you think I want to ban guns? I own guns, motherfucker. Like, that was a sick burn. That was a sick clapback.
In fairness, the Democratic Party has drastically demonstrated their desire to disarm the American population. I have never heard it come out of her mouth. So I can't speak to that, right? I can't blame her for something her party said. You can assume that because her party says it, she agrees, but again, she hasn't said it, so I can't point that finger. On the abortion side, I'd love to look into it, because here's what I know. One, everybody's like, oh, he's trying to take away women's rights. I understand the Roe v. Wade thing, but my understanding is that he is trying to take it away from a federal law and make it a state law. He is not attempting to make it illegal for people going through health.
He was dodging the question when they asked him, okay, what if it came up as a federal bill? Would you veto it? He dodged that question.
He didn't dodge the question. He answered it with his goal. He said, I want to make it not federal. I want to make it a state issue.
He said he didn't say I'll veto it. He said
no, he didn't. He specifically did not. He said,
I want to make it in the state. It's not going to happen. But he didn't.
Hold on.
Answer the question.
This is what I don't understand. Like, and I genuinely mean this. How do people not hear this as an answer? Just because it's not the answer you want doesn't mean somebody didn't answer the question.
It's not yes or no.
They asked him the question. No, he very much did. I heard an answer. Now, maybe my lack of understanding on this topic is why I'm not hearing an answer. And that's possible because, again, I am not exceptionally educated. But to Peggy's point, his whole thing is states should decide. So then they ask his goal. States should decide. What am I trying to do? Make states decide. What has my goal been? Fix this problem that's been a debate for 50 years, which he's right. It's been a debate. Hold on. It's been a debate for 50 years. I'm trying to take it away from the debate because there is reasons for both sides. I want to make it a state decision so we get it out of the federal hands. Stop making this a talking point every election. That's his. So hold on. So when they say, well, what happens if you want to veto? His response, what I heard in that response is, I don't want to answer that question because I'm not trying to solve for that. So I don't want to solve for a hyper.
He doesn't want to answer the question. He didn't answer the question.
But here's the thing. That's like telling me, Jonah, I'm telling you I'm getting ready to do a direct-to-agent real estate business. And you're like, yeah, but how are you going to plan for getting leads for direct-to-seller? Well, I'm fucking not. I'm going direct to agent, dumbass. I just told you my goal.
Well, either way, I mean, look, I don't want to argue about this. Is minutia, but in the end, he didn't. Whether you think it, what you're saying is you think it was an unfair question. But either way,
no, I don't think it's an unfair question. I don't think it's an unfair question. I think it's a fair question. I just think that he answered it with his plan. And I don't think that because his plan doesn't directly answer their question, that it's being evasive. I don't think that's
All right,
fair.
whatever. I mean, this is the really minor point. I don't want to like get stuck here.
Yeah, so I think we should do a topic on this, bro. And I would love to have some women on here who I
We
think
can
are
talk about a
probably
lot of them.
better qualified to talk about this.
Yeah.
But I don't
actually
know. Like,
disagree
here's the
women are
thing.
necessarily better qualified, but
You don't
whatever.
think women are better qualified to discuss abortion?
No, sometimes they're idiots.
Fair enough. All right.
Just because you're aware, that doesn't necessarily mean you're better. You might be stupid. I don't know. It's possible you're just a stupid person.
Yeah, I'm just
Still.
gonna sit here for a second and just we gonna marinate. We gonna marinate. Yeah, you might have a better position, but you also might be stupid. So,
You just might be. I don't know. Just because you look, I don't look at gender. Everyone can be stupid. White,
Everybody
black,
can be-
woman's, man. You could be a
Wait.
fucking idiot.
all right, look, if you guys heard it here first. Everybody could get it. Everybody can get it. You don't care what your color is. You don't care what gender you identify as. Now, here's the
So-
point, though. Here's the last point that I will say on that thing.
Okay.
Marinade. We got to marinate. We're gonna sit in it for a minute, like marinade. Is that
Want to
not how
just
you
let
say it?
that sit for a really long?
Yeah. So Jonah, here's the other thing, which is why I would be interested in hearing people's perspectives, because I don't know. They fact checked him and said that's not true, but I have actually heard on multiple occasions doctors come forward and talk about the stories about like forceps during birth and ending the baby's life in that process during labor. And essentially that happens after they're technically out of the room, which means they're technically alive. So for them to say that that's not true, I've heard lots of stories that it is. So there's a lot of information I think that could
Third
be could be plugged in.
trimester abortions, they exist. It's less than 1% of abortions. I think the vast majority of Democrats are not like, if they think if a third trimester abortion is happening, they're only pro it if it's like for really, really serious scenarios, like threat of the mother or a threat of to the mother, like things like that. I think it's a red herring, personally.
Maybe.
Oh, I mean,
And
honestly,
I'm not
it's
educated
less than
enough to
1%, and that's what Republicans obsess over. When really, what Republicans want, what they actually want, is no abortion at any trimester. So, like,
But
it's a
then
red
here's
herring.
my question. Final topic on this before, and we can circle back. But
We
here's
should
my
also talk
question.
about like what you believe, how it was overall. You so far said
Yeah,
this subject.
no. Yeah, we got stuck on this topic. So my final
Sure.
question to this particular topic is this: everybody's talking like he's coming after women's rights. I'm not hearing that. Like, I'm not hearing that. So you're talking about red herrings, 9 months. Cool, that's a red herring. But is it, if he has not specifically said he wants to make it illegal so people got to cross the border and hangers, which is a red herring argument that people are going to the extremes, which is what you're accusing the Republicans of. Has he said that? Like, I don't know. That's the part that I'm curious
He
of.
definitely wants. He is proud of being the most pro-life candidate ever. I agree with him. He is the most pro-life candidate ever. He's done more to destroy abortion rights than any other president since Roe v.
But
Wade happened.
why does that? And this is my question, right? Shut up, bro. Why does being pro-life equal I don't want women to have a choice? Because he did say in this answer, and again, I may be speaking from a place of ignorance. I'm genuinely curious when I make this statement. Bro, shut up. Sorry. So here's my question, right? Like, he answered the question, and his answer was, I think there are scenarios where women should have a choice, where health is a factor. All of these things are important. All of them need to be factored. None of this is black and white. Big reason why I want to get it out of federal hands and into state hands. In my head, I heard, and again, if I'm ignorant, y'all don't come for me, because I genuinely don't know. What I heard is a guy saying the same thing that the Democrats were saying. They were agreeing on this topic. They were disagreeing on some aspects, but they were agreeing essentially that there are scenarios where people need a right to choose. But because I think like it
That's what he
feels
thinks.
like,
That's not what
because
Texas thinks.
I
You
don't know.
that,
I'm
right?
not. I did not
You
listen
don't
to
know
that.
that.
I
Certain
don't.
states just straight banned it. I don't give a fuck if you were raped. I don't give a fuck if you were incest. Like, it's just banned now because what has happened is it's up to the states. The states choose everything. So
Gotcha.
Texas thinks it's just straight murder of a baby, no matter what happened.
Interesting.
And we can get into that, right?
Yeah,
Of
we
whether
should
that's
definitely do a
true or
circle back
not.
on
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother thing. But wait, what about like just overall? Like you said your parts
Overall,
on the
yeah, honestly, man, I would probably. Here's the thing. I think the general consensus. I have two answers, and I hate to have two answers. My answer is I think that as a general rule, I probably agree with you that it was mostly a draw from a basic debate point. However, I think that the big winners, like the big home runs, he had more big home runs than her, which would give me a slight edge. If I say slight edge, I'm giving like 49-51. Like I'm not giving a huge thing.
maybe
So I would-
it's too hard to tell for me, but like we would have to count it up. We'd have to like go through that again and count it up.
That's
to
why
be
I
honest.
don't have a clear answer, to be honest with you. I think I agree with you, man. I think it was a good debate. I'm going to say this at the beginning. I said I did not know what to expect from Kamala. I did not expect a very good showing. Big respect. She showed up. She did her thing. I got to give respect. She was
I would,
very
like,
coherent.
honestly, like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. Good.
But like, even though I still think Trump is terrible for the country, I think he's like beyond awful. Because he wasn't trying to interrupt her, that was his strategy. He went the conserve Trump, where he's like, I'm not going to interrupt. I'm just going to say what I want to say, right? He did that once with Hillary and did that once with he didn't go like Republican primary Trump. That was actually the best debate where I'm like, okay, we actually got our fucking points out, right?
Yeah.
Like on like the 20, if you remember the 2020 debates, they were just trash. Everyone was just like, everybody was telling each other to shut up. It was gross to watch. And then last debate a couple months ago, Joe Biden was just like did terribly, wasn't there. And then I don't even feel like that. Like the Hillary Clinton Trump debates were okay. I think they were somewhat better like this, but I just think it was more even on this. I think Hillary did a terrible job debating in comparison to Kamala. So
I agree with that.
Anyways, I think we should just, I mean, I think you and I basically agree on the debate topics. You and I obviously disagree on some of the policy and what is true and not true, which is, this is why I don't think debates matter. I think, this is a question. Who the fuck is still a swing voter at this point? Like, who's undecided? I just don't.
I bet
know
RFK.
anyone.
I bet RFK people are like understandably
so?
on the fence. I don't know. I don't know anybody.
I haven't
really
met
don't
a
know
single
anybody.
person who's undecided. It's crazy to me that I think it's crazy that there are still undecided people.
Is there anybody in here who's undecided? Tell the truth. Jesus is watching.
Yeah.
You don't believe in Jesus?
That's just wild to me that you're still like
No.
debating this. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like there's probably some RFK people who were heavy RFK. They thought he was the white knight. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I hated Trump, but now you're going for Trump. What should I do? I'm not voting. I feel like there are a lot of those people. He didn't,
Cool.
in fact, endorse T Daddy. So tomorrow, here's what I think we should do. I think we should come back, guys. Any of you guys who want to come back tomorrow and give your opinions, come hang out. 5:00, regular podcast time. And I took some notes. What I think we should do, I think we should try to do our best. Jamarco, Jonah, let's try to find some fact-checking information, balanced fact-checking if we can. And really just do a breakdown because our opinion is based on how the debate sounded more so than the facts of the debate. I think
Right.
understanding the facts of the debate does in fact change our opinion of how it went, right? So
it'll be hard to in a single day. They talked about a lot of different things. It'll be hard to fact check every single thing.
I don't think we do it.
Um,
I'm sure somebody will do it. We just find an article and hopefully trust it.
Massive cool factor. I know you're joking, but I'm taking that dub right there.
That's his next t-shirt.
He's been shitting.
So,
He's been shitting on me the entire time.
look at that.
We've been
I
arguing
appreciate
in the
it.
comments.
It's the balance for me, dog. Look at this. Trump did better than I thought. Jonah's saying Trump did. That's what I like about our podcast, bro. People out here just saying, you know what? I might think this dude's an idiot. I might think this lady's an idiot, but we're going to be fair and balanced and open-minded and have
Look
a
at this. Look
dialogue.
at how nice people are being. Massive cool factor. He's calling me the left Ben Shapiro. That's an honor, bro. Right there. Look at
That's
that.
crazy. I can respect
That's
it.
I don't think I'm that smart. I don't think I'm that good. I don't think I'm as good. Ben Shapiro's sharp, dude. Like I don't know if I'm that sharp.
Okay, so what do we got for tomorrow? Things we're gonna look into. Essentially, what my goal is, and if you guys got other plans, you guys are welcome to come. I would love for anybody who wants to come up here. We'll bring you up. You can give your opinions on how we're wet. You can cuss out Kamala respectfully. You can cuss
You
out
can
Trump.
cuss me out. You can come on the podcast and cuss me out if you feel
I
like it.
almost
I
got
will.
cussed out
I'll be
last
here
week.
for it.
I almost got cussed out last week, so it's your turn,
Did
Jonah.
you?
Well,
Wait,
I
what
mean, Amada. Remember, Amada was not my friend for like a good.
Oh yeah,
30
Amada was
minutes.
getting heated. I remember that.
He was coming for me.
I forgot about her.
So we got what we'll let the links tell us, but we got the Ukraine thing, Afghanistan. Peggy, show me some race stuff if there's anything to be talked about. We need to talk about policies because he said his
I also
R4.
want to know if this Haitian dog thing is real. Everything
Did you
I
give it-
found, I only did 5-minute research after you sent that reel, and I found it seemed like bullshit, but I only did 5 minutes of research. I want to know if this is like real. Is this Arvada building real? Like the videos just show like
Nah,
like
bro.
crime. But like,
Jonah,
is this
here's
is
what I think
like
happened.
somebody get me an address to the Arvada building that is taken over by Venezuelan gangs?
Jonah,
I will
please
go
don't
there.
get taken hostage by a Venezuelan gang, bro. We got
Hablo
podcasts.
español, amigo. Yo voy
Nah, bro.
bien.
That's not you better roll up strap, dog. You
Yo,
better act
vive
like
en la República Dominicana. ¿Cómo estamos, amigos?
la próxima semana hablamos en español.
I'm just like, ayúdame, ayúdame. I'm just there, just getting taken.
So just so you guys know, he's joking because he's not far from Aurora, which at least 2 apartment buildings
Bro, I'm
have been
15
taken over.
minutes away. I could
Jonah,
literally see if
no,
this is true.
Bro, fuck, go, dude. Okay,
I don't know.
go.
I don't have an address. Nobody,
I don't
everybody
want
just keeps
you to go.
saying
Stay
somewhere
home,
in
bro.
Aurora.
Here's my. We can talk about this tomorrow too. Here's what I think is happening.
Dude,
I genuinely think y'all can call me crazy. I genuinely think that there have been millions of people who have been illegally brought into this country for one reason: to vote. That's what I think is happening, and I think somebody's also to wreak havoc and cause chaos. Jonah, dude, look in I think it's Ohio. There are multiple citizens. There's one dude. He's a black dude. I will find it. Looks like a normal dude. He's like, yo, this is how he talks. He's like, yo, y'all sitting up there in your suits, and I'm out here in these streets. Can you tell me why all these Haitian cats, why they going into the ponds in the park and chopping off their heads in the park, bro? He's in a.
Does anyone have any video of that happening? Like
I sent you a video and you said it was BS, bro.
The only video you sent me was this
playing it off
really
now, but
blurry
it's
video of this person being show me your teeth, and I couldn't see shit. And it's like, yep, eating cats. And then I'm like, what? There's no like actual dead cat anywhere. Like show me Haitians eating pets. That's what I want to see. And then I'll be like, look, Quijano, you're 100% right.
Look,
I was wrong.
I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not there, right?
I
I
know,
don't.
but like,
know
just
that,
like, I just there's not even close to.
Here's the thing. We'll talk about this. I think we'll talk about this. We should bring all this stuff up. Here's the thing, bro. Here, you know what I don't like about this? People's ignorant behinds are going to start making this racist. They're going to make it about race. Oh, you think black people like to eat cats? Haitians are the worst. Like, and they're going to start going to. They're pulling clips and they're saying stupid stuff. It's irrelevant of the race. It has nothing to do with the race. It has to do with the fact that there are people who were brought to this country. They were funded to be brought to this country. Haitians have a different reason for it than the Venezuelans or the other Latinos that are in New York in that lockdown hotel that you thought nothing was fishy about at all. There's something going on there with that, man. So we should definitely talk about that.
Okay, hold on, Quijano. Let me just ask you a question. Let's say it's all bullshit. Like, let's say let's just say it's all bullshit. There's nobody's eating any pets. These people are just making this shit up. That's hilarious, Peggy. Jesus. Jeez.
Say you gotta handle your business, dog. Feed your kids.
Like I'm just gonna throw it out. Like I think there is something to be said if it's complete bullshit and people are making it up. That's slightly racist or at least xenophobic.
Oh my God! Shut up, dude.
I think it is. If they know they're making it up.
Jonah, stop it, Jonah. If the undocumented immigrants that have overtaken the population happen to be from Haiti, are they racist for referring to them by their appropriate nation of origin?
No. That's not what makes them racist. No. Like, here, let me say it again because I don't think you understood me. That's not what makes them racist. What if they knowingly didn't see anyone eating pets, and they're just making that up, like lying about it. I don't know if this is true. If they're
Why
lying
would
about
this
it,
many people in various states make
I
this
don't
up?
like. It's only in Ohio. That's the only place where the eating pets thing is happening. It's only
Okay.
in Springfield, Ohio, or Spring, wherever the fuck Springfield is.
I think there's more than one place, but I don't
I
know.
might be wrong. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know if this is true. Maybe pets are being eaten, then it's not racist, obviously. But if these people, because they don't like this minority group, Haitians, they don't like these immigrants, are then making up stories about it, making up lies that they're eating pets, that's racist.
Yeah, I can see your point.
If that's true, I don't know if it's true, but if that is true, then it is racist. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying like it definitely, if you believe it, you are racist. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you lied knowingly, then you probably are racist.
So Peggy, just so we're clear, supposedly, supuestamente, in New York City,
Spanish,
bilingual
podcast.
Yeah.
¿Cómo estamos, mi gente, mi gente?
The people in New York are getting paid. They get stipends, $4, $5, $10, $20,000 a month are getting given to them for free to come and live in the country and stay in Fancy's hotel, and they're being guarded by the United States military. Like, bro, come on, man. Like, at what point do you start realizing things look a little suspect?
We need to investigate this stuff. I want to know if this stuff is true or not. Like, if it is true, that is crazy, Keanu. But I want someone to like show me. Like, I want to see a video of someone eating a pet before like these people go fucking crazy about it. Everyone's complaining and nobody has a video. Not a single video. If it's happening in the park, that's suspect. You know?
Okay.
Everyone has phones. No one's going to take a video.
Let me ask you this. If you have multiple people sitting at city council meetings making these claims, asking for assistance from city council, you don't think that that's legitimate?
I don't know if that makes it legitimate. Like I said before, I just don't know these people at all. I don't know if these people are like honestly racist and just mad about the Haitians. I just don't know. What would convince me is if this is happening in the park, why the fuck isn't anyone recording this? That's weird to me. Everyone records shit. Dude, if you saw pets being eaten in the park, you wouldn't record that, Keanu? Like, come on, tell me. Be real.
Dude, I don't know what I would do in that circumstance.
I would 100% call the cop and then right afterwards record it.
What do you do in that circumstance? Do you walk up? Do you try to
I would first call the cops. I think that's what I would do. And
911 ain't letting you off the phone, homie?
What?
911 is not letting you off the phone. You got to stay on the phone until the police arrive.
Is that how that works? I've never called 911.
You've never called 911? Well, how's that white privilege working out for you, sir?
Got me, bro. I have never called 911 in my entire life. Or once I did, actually. But it was... but then they told me that my shit wasn't serious enough. So then they told me to call a different number.
Wait, why'd you call 911? And the cops was like, nah, fam, this ain't it.
They literally, that's what happened. Because I mean, what was happening? I mean, this is a crazy story. I don't know if you want to get into this right now.
We can end with this. I need to hear why the cops told
story. Basically, COVID was just happening, right? And people were kind of going insane because it was like that first day. It was literally the day before the world shut down. The day before they were like, everybody stay the fuck home. We're shutting everything down. It was the day before. One of my friends was getting kicked out by her roommate. Her roommate was like, you keep fucking hanging out with people. Get the fuck out of my apartment. And there was literally like a standoff. And I was like, I called 911 and 911's like, that's not serious enough. Call like the police department and we'll get, because they weren't like fighting in that moment. They were just verbally.
Wait, why did you feel the need to call the police about this circumstance?
It's like the roommate was like my friend is a girl and kind of was just like going along with it. And I was like, what the fuck are you? No, don't go along with this.
Wait,
like,
you knew these people that were getting put out?
Yeah. One of them was my friend. The person getting put out was my friend, who's a girl and kind of like not meek, like just not confrontational type of person. So like I knew that if I didn't do anything, she'd just be like, all right, I guess I'm out on the streets. And I'm like, no, don't fucking do that. Right. Anyway, so I took charge and that was the whole thing. And then 911 was like, No, that's not like we're not dealing with like an eviction case right now. Like,
So
go
you took
call
charge, and the cops were like, "We do not respect or recognize your authority. Go sit back down, sir."
Yeah, that's what they said. Quote unquote. That's the one time I called 911 that I can think of, actually.
That sounds like an extremely appropriate situation for like if I had to design a scenario where you called 911, it would either be that or you having a really, really bad experience with some laced gummies. Those are the two scenarios where I'm
Just doing drugs.
needing to call the cops. Those are the only two that I
Oh,
can
this
go
is hilarious. Peggy, look, I'm sorry. Some girls are really stupid. Like, people are just dumb. You girls can be also really stupid. Look, I'm just throwing it out there.
No,
Look, maybe I
need
won't
to
get
know.
laid for another month. Maybe my Hinge profile is about to go down the toilet, but whatever.
Jonah, can Jamarco clip that? Can that be our next reel? Is be like,
Oh,
I think
God,
women are
dude.
more
all the reels.
and you're like, women are stupid. Some women are dumb. No,
that would be really funny if we clip that. That'd be some good bait. That'd be some good bait where they're like, what? The liberal?
Profit and paradox, ladies and gentlemen. All right, good stuff, guys. I appreciate it.
But if they clip that, then it has to be you just laughing, like not disagreeing, but just like laughing right afterwards.
Yeah, that we got to do that. Jamarco, you got to figure out how to make that work. That's the one for tomorrow. I literally just got a pop up on my thing saying that Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris. If Ashley's
Let's
still
go,
watching,
Queen. Let's
care.
Go.
Of the list of things I could not care less about, that has to be on the top.
I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Taylor Swift.
No,
the Swifties are coming out, dude. The Swifties will change the results of this election.
I hope they swiftly stop talking. I don't care. I just don't want to.
All right, my man. Let's leave everything else for tomorrow. 5 p.m. MST tomorrow.
5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, guys. Everybody who was here, please come and hang out. We want to hear you guys. Speak your truths. Come and tell us your opinion about what happened, or sit there and comment while me and Jonah go back and forth about who is more intelligent, and who respects women more. So, yeah, that'd be any other final comments, Jonah?
I think it was the best debate I've seen in a really long time. I think that was really fun arguing in the comments. I really enjoyed it. That was the best time I had watching a debate. Every other debate I've ever watched, in the past like
is it because you were watching it
great.
with me and everybody else in our YouTubes? I think that's why. That was
part of it. I love arguing. Anyways, guys. Appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all tomorrow, 5 p.m. MST on either my or Keanu's podcast. It's gonna be dope.
Yo, can y'all hold on? Y'all do us a favor. Can y'all hit freaking like on the thing? I never asked for that. Like and subscribe. Tell somebody to come hang out. If you have an exceptionally emotional friend or auntie or uncle that's gonna come over here and have a really, really bad attitude and get salty, bring them to the podcast tomorrow. Have them come and get salty. We want the salt. All the flavors out there, they choose salty. We want the smoke. We got a massive cool factor is the 5th like, which means we have like way fewer likes than we need. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Hope you guys had a good time. Hope you guys have a better time tomorrow. Do something great. See y'all next time. Peace.